You are listening to Catholic Family Podcast.
I'm Kevin Davis, and this is the Catholic Family Podcast, and I'm very happy to bring a special episode, actually kind of a surprising episode, honestly, and we've got the pleasure of having on my two sisters. They are my sisters, and they're also sisters. So, sister on the how do I describe this? Closer to me over here, this is Sister Maria Antonia, and Sister Evangeline is on the far side. And the one with the glasses is Sister Antonia. Yeah, thank you, sister. That's the easier way. And they both have had a big week. Sister Evangeline just took her first vows after the novitiate, and Sister Antonia just today got her or made her final vows, her 6-year vows. So she is officially in it till the end. She has a ring on her finger and is pretty much today was pretty much her wedding day. So Sister Antonia, I think I got to ask you a little bit about that first. I mean, how do you feel today after getting the ring on your finger?
I think the best word is probably satisfied, because it's not like anything was a surprise or anything was new, and you've had a long time to build up to, the Day of Days. But it's not like it's scary, because the commitment happened a long time ago. It's just kind of tying the knot, making it official, and not so much till death do us part, but till death will we meet.
That is pretty nice, I guess. Boy, it makes me kind of question my vocation. No, I'm kidding. But so that's interesting that you say that. So was that something when was the point where you said, okay, this is really a commitment, that I'm really sticking to this, and that no matter what, I'm in it, even though the final official document, kind of the official commitment, is today, is 6 years after your entry. But when was that time where you're like, okay, this is it, this is my vocation?
The day that it was, I don't know. I think probably the day I talked to Father Borja.
Before you even joined?
Yeah. Well, because I'd known I wanted to be a nun for, I don't know, a long time, since I was probably 4 or 5. I'd kind of had it in my head. But then I had a year or so of questioning when I was a senior about, whether I was going to go spend some time with family for a year or two, get a job, just spend some quality time, or enter, as soon as possible. And if I did enter, which congregation. But I had a really good long talk with Father Borja, and kind of helped me settle my mind, not only on you need to enter here at CMD, but this is a commitment. This needs to be forever. And I don't know, there is a really deep sense of quiet and calm, and I know this is right. And I'd never had it before, and never quite had it in the same way since. Or is so absolutely, I don't know, a very, very deep interior sense of calm and joy.
And that was when you were 17 or 18?
That was February of 2016. So I was 17.
That's pretty amazing. I think that most people out there would have a hard time picking between an ice cream, in the Dairy Queen line. So at 17, that's pretty good to be able to decide that you want to spend your life for God. And I think that it really is hard to imagine in this day and age, I think, for most people, probably of all times, to really think that you can commit like that for the rest of your life at the age of 17. And Sister Evangeline, did you have kind of a similar experience? Because you joined at a similar age. You were 17 or 18, right? Was it similar, or?
Yeah, no. I wanted to join the convent because I think God just wanted me to join. And so I just woke up one day and I was in the convent. And like, whoa. But I was even like all 3 postulates. I was like, is this right? Is this right? Is this right? Like all the way through. I talked a lot to my superior, and she was like, that's doing something, giving up something good for something better. And I was like, okay, it's really, really hard, but okay. If Sister Antonia can do it, I can do it.
Nice. The Davis competitiveness.
Oh,
yes.
No, and like after a while, just thinking of going back to what you were is like, that would be so sad. Like, to leave, being able to pray every morning for half an hour, pretty much uninterrupted, and just having calm and everything, even if it's crazy and we're butchering deer and rabbits. It's still just like, this is what we're supposed to be doing, and there's never any doubt as to what God's will is, which is like really nice.
That is nice, and I think maybe I'll ask Sister Antonia this first. No, maybe I'll ask Sister Evangeline, because you're the freshest from this. Because I think a lot of people think, okay, the novitiate, wow, that's a year of silence. That must be the hardest part of the entire time being a nun. I mean, because I can't even imagine not talking, and that must be so difficult. Was that how your experience with it, or how did you feel about the 1 year of silence?
Well, I was really bad at keeping silence, for one. Besides for that,
All the sisters are like nodding their heads, like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, and it was like not silent at all, like on the inside, because you have to like prepare for the rest of your life and be able to like charge your battery, I guess is what sister says, and it's really a battlefield. Like, it's like being a page about to become a knight. You have to learn everything about what you're going to learn in 1 year and learn it so well that it's a habit. No pun intended. And it's really a lot. Like, it's definitely not boring, and it's not as hard as you think not talking to people, because you're definitely busy talking to God and where you're supposed to be.
And was that similar for you, Sister Antonia?
Yeah, I think novitiate is very, very busy, and it's a time of a lot of mortification. But if you're doing it well and you're doing it for God, then there's such a sense of purpose and struggle, and it's very, I don't know, it's so nice to have an ultimate goal in mind and to know absolutely that you are working for that and that you are working for God, and to be able to do it without having to be distracted. Because not talking to people for a year is not by any means the hardest part of novitiate. Kind of rooting up everything you were before for the previous 17 years is the hard part. And being able to replace it with what you'll hopefully be ultimately as a religious and learn to be. So I think anything that gets in the way of that, by the end of novitiate, it becomes terrifying having to meet it again, because you're scared of losing the battle once there are distractions again.
Mm-hmm. And so, sorry, go ahead, sister.
I mean, just being more as recollected as you could be when you didn't have to worry about offending people and, talking to people, or just, everything. Just being able to talk more with our Lord. Really
sure.
Nice.
And was that something that, did you feel kind of like special forces, like Marines, when you had to get up and milk the cows at 4:00 in the morning, and you're, instead of physical, I guess you even did get the physical preparation too, or the physical exercise,
Mm-hmm.
but also I guess, like you say, it's kind of it's that not training camp. It's when you go and prepare yourself, like Paul did in the Marines, and you go and you do these really crazy hard things because it's preparing you and breaking yourself down. And honestly, I've never considered the novitiate that way. I've never taken part in it, but so that's kind of what it is, right? It's kind of breaking yourself down and building yourself back up, in not as a soldier, but as a soldier of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I tell you what, nobody laughs as much as the novices do. Because you're like working and working and working and be recollected, and then recreation comes, and it's like, yeah.
Well,
It's definitely
nobody breaks as many things as a novice either.
That's not true.
Yes, we've all lived through it.
Well,
So is that because your brain is just kind of somewhere else, or why is that?
I think it must be, but it is very, very consistent. Things happen, and you enter as a postulant, and you know how to cook, and you know how to carry a glass, And then all of a sudden you become
Yeah.
a novice and the food burns and the glasses break and you drop stuff. And
Somehow the barn door doesn't close and the cows get bloated.
or, you thaw out a frozen bag of fruit on a glass table and this table shatters.
The entire table.
Oh man, I hope these are stories are spread out amongst the novices, not just one of
Oh,
you.
yes.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. but that's also a beautiful thing. Sorry.
I was going to say, everybody has these stories, though. It's not
Yeah.
exclusive. These are exclusives, but
Gotcha.
everybody has a story.
But it's amazing now because I mean when I was in school there were I think there were 12 sisters and now there's 35. Is that right? 36?
36.
Is it 36?
Mhm.
And so that's in about 10 years time. And when I was there, I think there were several sisters who were novices by themselves. And is that something, maybe I'll ask Sister Antonia first, is that something that you think was easier? Because you were with two other sisters. Was that easier with others, or was it, you think, would have been the same alone?
I don't know. It's nice being able to have feedback from the other novices, for sure, and to kind of have that camaraderie, and you can laugh at each other, and you do a lot. But I kind of often wondered too if novices distract each other a little bit. So I think there'd be a lot of give and take. I mean, the goal is by the end of novitiate, you're working toward not distracting each other and helping each other. You're in this warfare. You're in this competition for heaven together, and you've got to be helping each other toward that goal. But at least in the beginning, for us, it could be kind of distracting having other people doing the exact same things you're doing and getting in trouble for it together sometimes.
I guess that's a kind of a nice thing that you all look the same, except for from the front. So, who knows who that was who spilled the trash all over it was someone in a white veil, when there's six of you. Right? I know that's the problem with Sister Antonia. You have two of you are about the same size, and then you have one is much taller. So it was a little bit harder for Sister Noelle. I assume that she was a little easier to see in that white habit. But Sister Evangeline, you got 5 others, at least at certain steps, right? That were.
I mean,
or no, is it now there are now 3 left, or
there
how
are
many
4
left?
left now.
4 left. Okay.
For a month, we had 8. So
wow,
definitely.
that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Yeah.
We definitely. I mean, Sister Antonia, she's the type to give the good example and not get distracted. But I'm the type that needs a good example. So I definitely like having other companions. Because then if I do something really dumb, which I do, then the other sisters might do it too, and I won't feel so bad.
I don't think that's the same as looking for a good example.
No, there are good examples too. That's different.
What do they say? What do they say? What is it? Misery loves company.
Yeah. But then there's some of the sisters that are just so they follow the rules so well, and they're so good and holy. I'm like, they're just novices. They've only been here as long as me. If they can do it, I hope I can do it too. Because
right. And so, Sister Evangeline, you're about to start teaching kindergarten, and so what do you expect for your new role for the next few months?
Well, thankfully it's only 3 weeks, and since the sister before me, Sister Paulina, did a really thorough and good job with them, so I'm just babysitting. Thankfully, we'll be coloring a lot of pictures,
looking through the old homework.
What did she do that I can do again? No, I'm just definitely really excited though, because they're so cute and sweet, and there's 7 of them, so.
And so for 3 weeks, they will probably still be very cute in your eyes. So that is a beautiful thing. They will always be a cute kindergartner. I imagine after a full year that might change a little bit.
Yeah.
But Sister Antonia, you're in Arizona, you're in Phoenix, and I know this year you've been teaching English. What else are you doing?
So I do middle school, which for us is 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then I teach 2 periods of high school English. So 9th and 10th graders together, and 11th and 12th graders together.
Got it. And so how has that been for you? You've been over there for a while, 4 or 5 years now.
This is my 4th full year there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice. We have really, really good students, and we're always amazed at how much they can accomplish. Yeah, well, I mean, give almost any student a goal and they can achieve it. And so I found it especially entertaining with middle schoolers being able to find just the right incentives for for virtue and for academic success. And we have all sorts of different games and things that we play, and it's a really good experience. I really enjoy teaching.
And so do you rule through, I shouldn't say all the time, but when you need to, is it fear? So do the students obey you because they would feel bad if you were upset? Do they have a little bit, do you have a Sister Antonia, kind of a crazy sister look, which I know some of us have experienced from the sisters who God bless them. I mean, I still have some bad memories of like, oh, okay, sister, I'll listen.
If you say you don't give the stink eye, I will leave.
I have learned to mitigate the angry sister look to a bare minimum, because I think it's a lot more effective when you can control a classroom through setting a good example and setting a standard for behavior, a standard for expected behavior, and make that the norm. And when the norm is broken, you just have privileges that are taken away. You have, lines when necessary, things like that. Because it's only on extreme cases that I'll actually, give someone a look, take someone out, things like that. And I think it's more effective that way. I had actually talked to the students a few weeks ago. We were going over, different aspects of respect for teachers, respect for adults, etiquette toward adults, things like that. And they actually, I told them, there are times when I need to take a look at you and you know exactly what I'm thinking, and we need to step outside the classroom and talk about things. And one of them raised their hand and said, yeah, sister, we really, really, really don't like it when you do that. I know, that's the point. If you liked it, we'd have a problem.
It's kind of one of the crazy things that you always hear these stories of people, back in the day, 40 years ago, who, the sisters would beat me and stuff, which I think most of it's just a lie. I think people watch movies and they hear these things and they make them up in their own heads. But either way, like, I truly think I would rather have gotten my hand smacked with a ruler than gotten the look that I got from some sisters. Though usually it was almost never directed at me, thank goodness. But even just seeing it directed at somebody else was kind of like mind melting. That was terrifying. There's just something about a sister and how she's dressed in her habit, and you only see her face, and her eyes make up at that point it seems like 90% of everything you can see.
Well, and the thing too is, I'm sure there were cases in the past when the sisters used the ruler and things like that, because you have no idea how many times we get that question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, pretty much every time we're ever in the airport, several people will come up and mention the ruler and things like that. And sometimes you'll have people who actually experience, getting smacked on their hand with a ruler and things like that. But I'd say 99% of the time, we'll talk to them for a few minutes, and they're like, well, be honest now. Did you deserve it? And they're, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, different times call for different means of discipline. And I'm sure in 50 years, people will look back at our means of discipline today and have found means that are more effective for them 50 years from now. But you have to do what is appropriate for circumstance.
If not more effective, they'll at least be even more soft. Like, you gave them a bad look. Back when I was a kid, the sister looked at me bad. I still have nightmares. I just imagine Sister Evangeline going into her kindergarten class and trying to give them the dirty look, just like practicing for her future students.
Bad, please.
These little like 5-year-olds, and she's like,
You're like, what are you doing? Practicing.
I'm watching you, Billy Joe.
It's not working.
It is satisfying when every once in a while, I don't know if satisfying is the right word, but every once in a while, I'm short, and you have these high school boys that I teach, and I tend to prefer teaching them when they're sitting, so I can make eye contact, and they'll be cutting up in class or whatever it is, making jokes while I'm writing things on the board, and you can just turn around, just look at them for a space of about 3 seconds, and they just kind of sit back like, yes, sister.
Nice.
No words needed. You know what you're supposed to be doing right now to do it.
And so are there other how you're viewed by the public, I think is pretty interesting. And it's one of the reasons I really wanted to do this podcast, because I've seen there was a video from the sisters down in Florida under Bishop Sanborn that posted this video of them singing the video, or the no, I can't think of it. One of the chants from Easter, and it was just unbelievable and went viral. I think it was getting up to nearly 1 million views on Twitter. And so I think that there's really people really want tradition, and they want the old ways, and they want the old faith. And I think that when you see someone wearing a collar, it doesn't necessarily show that, unfortunately, that you don't know, is this a traditional priest? Is this because they all wear, not all of them, but many of them wear similar things. But I think when you see a nun dressed in a full habit, that's pretty shocking. And that really says, whoa, this is something different. And is that something that, I imagine everywhere you go, you must get people kind of like staring. Is that strange, or do you get used to it?
You get used to it. I mean, at first, especially I think coming right out of novitiate, it's difficult, because for all of novitiate, you really don't go into stores unless it's absolutely necessary. You sit in the car or you stay home. But I remember right out of novitiate going through a Walmart down the produce aisle, and saw this lady with her phone on the edge of her basket, and then walked by her and realized she was recording us as we walked by.
Okay.
Ask us for a picture and we'll probably say
yeah,
yes.
right.
But
right.
Well,
Do you want an autograph?
Well, 99% of the time, the reactions are really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
People do respect the habit, and it does preach a sermon without words.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually once had someone in the post office. We were there for quite a while. We were doing sending out some mail for school and things like that. And the lady came up to us and said, do you know you actually make people uncomfortable? I'm sorry, but if we make people uncomfortable, it's probably either because they want to talk to us and don't know how, or they're doing something they're not supposed to, or things like that. But I'd say for the vast majority of people, it's, it's so good to see sisters in habit. Haven't seen that since I was in 2nd grade. And where is your church? Really positive for the most part.
And I think that's something too, especially when you see so many young sisters. And I think that's people are just not used to it. I mean, even back in the 60s and 70s, I think most of what people even grew up with back then was, I think, at least when you see pictures, they were older sisters. There were not many young vocations, because unfortunately that was already drying up, I think, even in the 50s. And so I think that's something that's really amazing, that you see these pictures of the CMD sisters and the sisters in Florida, the sisters of the, I can't think of any names right now, but the Pius V sisters, there's about 100 of them, and they're so young. And I think that's so inspiring. And I guess that would be, I think we probably got to wrap it up. I know you both have to get back to the family party there, but I think maybe I've got 2 more questions. And maybe I'll start with I'll save the last one, which I wanted you to tell me one of your favorite stories since you've been sisters. Maybe it's leaving the cows in to get bloated. That sounds pretty interesting. But I would first ask, I mean, how do you convince a young girl, or some young female watching now, that it's a possibility. Obviously it's not a vocation for everyone, of course, but the idea of being a sister is doable. I mean, maybe Sister Antonia, I'd ask you that first. I mean, how do you convince them that it's something that's possible?
Well, I think you'd have to start out with the idea that every vocation will come with sacrifice. I mean, the married vocation will come with, numerous sacrifices that will last until, the day your kids move out, the day your spouse dies, the day you die. There will be sacrifices with the married vocation, with the single vocation. So for the religious vocation, it is a matter of sacrifice, certainly, but it's a matter of sacrifice with, and don't be offended or anything here, but of a far, far greater reward than, and a guaranteed reward than anything this world could ever offer in any other state. Because our Lord promised that anyone who should give up home and country and father and mother and brothers and sisters would receive 100-fold in this life and in the next. It's not just a promise of eternal reward. It's a promise of happiness now. And it's not the happiness of, oh, I'm going to an amusement park, I'm happy, I've got this, flutter by feeling of I'm excited. It's not about excitement. It really is not. But there's a much, much deeper sense of joy to it, because you know that there is a spouse who will love you forever. As forever in a huge, unfathomable, perspective. We've been promised that, the virgins who consecrate themselves to God will follow the Lamb for eternity in heaven, holding a place that no other will hold. And he loves us so much more than any human spouse ever could. He's a divine, perfect spouse that will always come through, always knows what's best for us, always will provide for us. And even just on a human level, that's desirable to always be provided for. But on a spiritual level, there's, the joy is something that it's really hard to put into words, because, you can experience a joy kind of like, when you see a sibling get married and you know that they're taken care of. When you, maybe it's the same as when you have a child and there's just a deep sense of completion. I think that to make it doable, you have to be willing to make the sacrifice, but know that there is a great reward at the end. And the sacrifices really are so very, very little in the long run, because the reward is so great.
It might seem big when it's 5:20 in the morning, but oh.
Do you have anything to add, Sister Evangeline?
I guess, yeah. But because, love is doing what you dislike for someone who matters more to you than yourself. And, our Lord has obviously done so much for us, like more than we could ever repay. And the best way that we can show him what he means to us is to give everything we have to him. And, you can do that in the married state, obviously, by consecrating what you do, your daily duty. And that's really good. Obviously, if that's your vocation. Not that I'm biased, but I think you have many more opportunities as a sister to really give everything. Like, there's a really good book about that sister really likes. I forgot what it's called.
Spirit of Sacrifice.
That talks about the vows being a holocaust, that you are more than what the martyrs did. Every day is kind of like a martyrdom, but that it's not that bad, because, you have someone to do it for. And it's so much to me better than being, is surrounded by people who, even if they are good people, it's hard to not only think about yourself. It's hard to focus on God when, you're thinking, what did so-and-so think about me? I saw this on Twitter, Facebook and everything, It's hard to 100% say, I am doing this for God. Not, I'm doing it because it will look real great on Pinterest. It's like, if we're cooking, if we're scrubbing the corner of the basement floor, it probably won't look that good on Pinterest, but it will look really good, to God. Because, it's not very often. But, it's really, it seems like the best way to show, how much our Lord means to us. And I would hope that he would mean a lot to a lot more people. And I just don't understand. Like, I hope there are more vocations, because I tell you what, I would never have thought that it would have been so, such an amazing thing to be a part of a community and just do everything for God.
Well, and I think it's a beautiful thing too, that I think our generation how should I say, our parents and grandparents had to live through and fight through a really difficult time. They had to find the truth, and they had to determine that the Pope wasn't the Pope, etc. And our generation is not really the same. We have a kind of a different situation. We've grown up in the church, in the true traditional Catholic Church, with traditional priests and sisters, and we've been taught catechism from birth, and we have a different experience. And I think that's something that I always try to say on this show, is that no matter your vocation, we should be trying to build Christendom, in a way that we are all in this together. We are spiritual soldiers that are trying to fight for the reign of Christ the King on earth, right? And I think that, as you say, it is absolutely a higher vocation to be a religious. That's not debatable. I mean, that's a fact. And I think that if someone, watching this show, is thinking, hey, I want to be a part of something bigger, something that is, God's family on earth, the body of Christ and the church, that's kind of the special forces. These are the people who really give up everything. And again, you can do any of this in any vocation. As a husband, of course, I can also offer up everything I do to God. It is harder. That's absolutely true. And it is a different struggle. But if you really want to give all, even just for the fight, I mean, obviously the perfect way is to do it because you love God and you want, as you said, you want to give him everything. But I love the idea of the fight, because our times are so much different. There's so much, there's so much, the momentum is turning, if that makes any sense. And there are so many souls to be won. And that spiritual warfare, I think it's getting more and more intense. You see the devil clearer and clearer every day, but you also get to see more and more young vocations who are, they're the ones fighting that. I mean, back in the day, you'd have these huge convents and monasteries, and all they did was pray and sacrifice and work. That's all. They didn't teach. They didn't do anything. They just prayed and worked. And their entire existence practically on earth was to fight that spiritual battle. And that's pretty intense. And I think that's a pretty cool thought.
The harvest is great and the laborers are few. I mean, if I say the world is run by prayer, and I don't think we'll ever really know until we get to heaven to what extent the world has been saved through prayer and through the sacrifices of religious and the sacrifices of the married people and the sacrifices of these single people who just give whatever they can for God, because more things are accomplished through prayer than the world could ever dream of.
And what do you think, sister, then, for the practical way, if someone's watching this and they think maybe this is something I might be interested in, I don't know, it's kind of an idea. Is that something should they reach out? Is there, I mean, literally, is there an email address? I mean, how do they, because I mean, obviously most people, I'd say they have a parish priest, and I assume that's the first step you go to, but not everyone does. And I know a lot of my viewers are all over Europe. I have viewers in India and in Australia, and people who don't have a regular priest. What would you recommend? Should they reach out? Should they find the email address for the CMD, or what should they do?
I would start with going to cmri.org. There are several email addresses that will be, the emails are then kind of distributed amongst different religious, depending on where the person is coming from. Sometimes an email will be forwarded to the nearest mission so that the priest there can reach out and make contact. That would probably be the easiest way, is through the emails at cmri.org, because almost always someone will see the email and be able to make contact again.
Okay, good. Great. And I think that, and then for the last few minutes, I mean, I don't know, this is kind of a hard question to answer, but I guess as I warned you about it before the show, I just want to have, I want a funny story. Because we know one that I probably can't say it on the recording, but we have a hilarious family story that has to do with one of our siblings and with a couple of sisters. I think I probably can't say it publicly, unfortunately, but it's pretty amazing. But I don't know, do either of you have anything that's something that would only happen to a nun, let's say that?
Well,
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Which one?
you got one?
I mean, I don't know about the possum one.
Oh, it's not.
The possum one.
We'll
So this is more of an Omaha story than a sister story, probably.
Yeah.
What's the possum story?
Is that?
It's not going on the recording, right?
Should it not go on record? So that's a non-recordable story. Okay, we'll save that for the after show. So do you have any record? Boy, all these stories, people are gonna be like, "What are the sisters doing over there?" But yeah, I guess you never know. You got to be a little careful with what you say.
Yeah.
As a sister. So are there any kind of like, hey, this was kind of crazy, or how about this? Have you had any, say, semi-miraculous things happen or something like that?
Yeah, you have it like every day.
Oh, we
Like
do.
how you got your ring and
Well, I suppose that's
your grass and your playground and
well. We're always amazed at how blessed we are. How God does really always provide. Like for the wedding rings, we do 23 karat gold for our wedding rings. We try and get them inscribed. We can pick a motto for our inscription. And so we were going, to a jewelry shop to kind of look for things. And it's actually surprisingly hard to find a very small gold band. They want to give you this rock of a sapphire. Like, no, that's not what we need at all. But so we were going and ordering our rings and getting them sized and trying to figure out who was going to pay for it and how that was going to work and things like that. And was looking at being, about, I think it's gonna be $200 to $300 per ring. And this really sweet lady came up to us and asked us what we were there for. And we told her we were there to get our rings for our final vows. And she walked away and we came back a few minutes later and she's like, I'd like to pay for your rings.
Wow.
Are you sure? Like, yeah, let me get it. I'll get all of it.
there were 3 of you too.
And there were 3 of us getting these rings. I mean, it was going to be upwards of $1,000. And so then I think the cashier started feeling a little bit guilty. And he knocked off like 20% of the price after she offered to pay for it, which was really nice. And then it turned out we always have an ongoing novena to St. Therese for our different needs. And the lady's name was Therese. No, I'm sorry. The lady's name was Celine because her mother's name was Therese, and she wanted to be named after the St. Therese's family. So that was really neat.
That is very cool. Well, it shows you, hey, there's still good in the world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have little things like that all the time. The miracles worked through prayer and God's intercession.
That's awesome. I love that. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I think people need to hear more about. I think we need to do a weekly podcast where the sisters can just say, here are the answers to our prayers. But it's really amazing. We've done a pilgrimage for the last few years to Our Lady of Alt-Utting, which is a small town, but a very famous pilgrimage chapel of Our Lady next to Munich. And we walk about 40 miles in 2 days. And we've had, the first year it was, I think, 9, and last year it was 18. And we hope this year it'll be 30 or 40. So we hope there'll be more people every year. But the answers to the prayers have been incredible, and big prayers. I mean, really like, hey, I need a new job. I need a law issue settled. I need my company to be bought. I mean, these things, and I mean, answered like the next day. I mean, really incredible. I mean, like, boom. I mean, we went on the pilgrimage, and everyone was like, almost like the next week or in the next weeks, we're like, oh yeah, wow, this was answered. It's unbelievable. It's absolutely incredible. And you see, if you put things, at their feet, at Our Lady's feet and at our Lord's feet, I mean, doesn't mean they're always going to be answered, but boy, they can be. It's incredible. And people need to trust that. I think people need to hear these stories more and trust, wow, the power of prayer is incredible.
Well, and 3 years ago in Phoenix, we were looking at kind of going into a really small year, probably only about 12 students, kind of questioning the viability of the school, whether we were going to be able to keep getting new students, things like that. And so we were praying a novena to St. Philomena and praying, keeping it in our rosary every day. And so then it turned out, as the weeks went by through the summer, we had, one family come, like, oh, nice. And then another family come, this is pretty good. And then, pretty soon you're up to almost 20 students, and like, okay, well, we've been praying to St. Philomena, and she was 13 when she died. So how about 13 students? Because that would make 26 students in the school. Because, that's 13 times 2. And so then, we got to, like, I don't know, we're going to start school on August 16th. We got to August 13th, or her feast day. We got to her feast day on August 11th, and only had 12 new students. Like, okay, well, I guess so. I guess, this is 12 new students is pretty good, but it's not 13. And later that day, a man we had never met called us and said, "Congratulations, sister. My daughter decided to come to your school. St. Philomena helped her decide." Like, okay.
Wow.
So we got our 13th student. We had 26 students in the school, and did a kind of a head count a little, week or two later, and we had 13 families. So,
oh my goodness.
pretty perfect.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. No, I think that's a good place to end it. I mean, I don't know if there's ever a good place to end it, but we got to end it somehow. I know you all got to go get to your barbecue going on, or whatever you guys got going on over there. And I know all the family's over, but I really appreciate it. I know I really appreciate His Excellency letting you both come on. That's a really very nice thing of him. I know that you never know what this mouth is going to say, so it's good that he trusts me having.
I think that's a Davis thing.
No, it's a big mouth that we have. What do you do? I guess, but no, I really appreciate it from you both, and I know that whoever's watching this will, or I hope they'll keep you guys in their prayers. And especially now, Sister Antonia, you're in it for good. So I guess they can keep praying for you. But
yeah, please.
They got to pray for your perseverance, for your sanity, I suppose.
That too.
But no, definitely pray for both of them, and pray for and if you want to support them, again, I think you can go to samurai.org. I think that's a good way if you want to support them monetarily, which I know the sisters can always use. It's another miraculous thing. I remember when I was in school there, it was like every week it was kind of like, who knows what was going to be bought at the grocery store. It just depended on, what came in, with donations. So you get a bigger block of cheese with bigger donations. And that's really how it works with the CMRI in general. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think it's a good way. It's a humble way, but it's a good way. And the bishop and everyone else in the organization, the congregation definitely makes it work. But, sisters, until next time, I hope somehow we can do this again. Maybe for Sister Evangeline's final vows, and in 5 years from now, we'll do another podcast, and we'll rehash the same topics, I suppose. But again, thank you very much, and
Thank you.
yeah, of course, and God bless.
God bless you.
You've been listening to the Catholic Family Podcast. If you enjoyed this show, please share it with your friends and family. You can support the production on Patreon and PayPal, and you can reach Kevin at kevin89davis@gmail.com. Ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam. All for the greater glory of God.